Welcome to Surrender School.
All right, so at Surrender School, we recover. And then hold on a second. Jeez Louise, I'm telling you. Yes, thank you. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions. So here's everything that we offer. Currently in session is the Supercharger Recovery Workshop, Sundays at 10:30. And then office hours that tie to that on Monday and Thursday at 8 a.m. and Mondays at, I did have it on here, but Mondays at 4 p.m. and all the times are Pacific. I do want to say if you fall behind, don't worry about it. Just if you fall 2-3 weeks behind, just grab one of that steps questions and answer that and keep coming back. We don't expect perfection and we don't expect anybody to answer every single question. So keep coming back. All right, and then we're also offering Step 1 Science. That's through March 15th, and it is on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. We have a book study with Michael Naylor once a month, which today this is The Alchemy of the Enneagram in Transforming Addiction, and Michael is here with us today, so very excited about that. Today is Type 4, Chapter 7. We also have reading rooms, and reading rooms are where we all actually read the book together and then share on it. Drop the Rock is Wednesdays at 3. The AA 12 and 12 is Tuesdays at 1:30. And the Emotional Sobriety, Alan Berger's Emotional Sobriety book, is Tuesday and Wednesday at 8 a.m. All right. Real quick, I also want to say that right now, Michael and I are doing a First Friday Enneagram exchange. And right now, Michael is going to be covering the instincts for the next 3, possibly 4, but probably the next 3 months on the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And he will cover the instincts. He started that on the 7th of February, and now we're going to continue that. After that, then we're going to do something called the First Friday Enneagram Exchange. And the first session of that will be me interviewing Michael, and then he'll probably interview me. And once again, the focus of that is the 12 steps with the Enneagram. So it's kind of those things together. And so everybody who will be interviewed or part of that will probably more than likely be somebody who is a 12-stepper and an Enneagram person. And I didn't know I didn't know many of the Enneagram people were people who had gone through recovery. I did not know that. So I'm learning that all the time. So anyway, so keep an eye out for that. Once again, the next 3, possibly 4 are going to be the instincts and the different zones within the instincts. All right, so here's everything we offer. Consider taking the past workshops, which are all out there recorded, experiencing the meditations by steps. So we have 5 or so minute meditations for each of the steps. Consider working the steps through either alone or with a sponsor. And we each year have a different way to work the steps that we have out there. And then, of course, it's recorded in there for the years to come. And then also consider attending our in-person retreat, which will be in 2026 in Las Vegas. And if you're interested in participating in the planning of that, reach out to Joy and let her know you'd like to be part of that. All right. And all of this can be found at surrenderschool.org. All right. Donate if Surrender School has helped your recovery. Join the WhatsApp group if you'd like to be part of that. You can also sign up for the daily Ennea Thought from the EnneagramInstitute.com. There is no space in EnneagramInstitute.com, even though there is on the slide. There isn't in real life. Okay. All right, let's take a moment to feel your breath going in and out. Feel your feet on the floor and just be present. Let go of anything before now and anything after now. And just be present. Now let's do the set aside prayer together. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know to leave space for what I have yet to learn. All right, let me introduce Michael. He is the director of the Maine Enneagram Center for Transformation and Wellbeing. He is a professional change coach and has been an Enneagram Institute faculty member. He's a licensed addiction therapist and clinical supervisor. He is a member of the International Enneagram Association. He's a professional member and also a teacher. And he is author of the book that we're talking about today, The Alchemy of the Enneagram and Transforming Addiction, in our monthly book study. This is what's at the bottom of Michael's email. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. All right, and Michael, with that, I am going to hand it off to you.
Well, so I'm Michael Naylor, and today's topic is the type 4, of which I share a strong affinity with type 4. Before I start, I just want to let people know that my training has been through the Enneagram Institute with Russ and Don Riso, and much of the kind of alignment I have with the teaching of the Enneagram comes through. There's something about the way the Enneagram Institute put the ideas together that really resonates with me on a deep level. And there are other schools that, have a slightly different orientation in terms of how they present. And I think it's really up to each of us to find out who are the authors that resonate and to go with that. So because there are a number of different channels of understanding, and in many ways, the Enneagram and the study of it is still very new. I mean, we're just barely touching, part of the depth of it. And I think, 20 years from now, we're going to be really surprised at what we've unpacked, especially as more and more people are skilled at discovering their type and even begin to, one of the things I've noticed is that there are really no memoirs out there on a type saying this is what it was like to be in my skin. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more memoirs. I'm working on one myself, which at the rate I write, it'll be a couple lifetimes from now, but I'm still doing it. It's challenging. And so that said, my own particular home base is here in South Portland, Maine, and I've been here for many moons. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and then hitchhiked across the country on a harebrained journey back in the hippie days and landed in Maine. So I've been with my wife for almost 27 years, Donna, a beautiful type 2, and my daughter Chloe is a type 9, and my other daughter Kaya is a type 5. And so one thing I wanted to sort of point you to is if you go to my website, I've done a number of different autobiographical stories about my experience as a type 4. And if you're a type 4, you might find it interesting just to, take a look at some of the readings. And I've got one autobiographical one on Donna as a type 2 and as a type 4 observing her, which is pretty intense. You may notice that the things that I tend to write about have an intensity to them that isn't sort of your normal Hallmark card approach, but that's all right. Got that type 4 twist to everything. So that said, I want to talk about the type 4, and what I wanted to do today was really create room for questions. If you've done a reading, which I'm guessing you did, although you may not have, but it was really to get some questions really right at your disposal to jump in. And as I do a little bit of the preview of the type 4, I'm going to open that up for more questions, because I think that's where the gold is in this particular kind of, I normally do a lot of slide stuff, but I think there's more to be gained by really listening to your questions. So all I know for myself is growing up as a little guy, I felt an intense loneliness and a longing for something I couldn't describe. There's like an emptiness that would just pierce through me. And because I didn't have an interpreters of my Enneagram patterns when I was a little boy, I did what anybody would do, which is I tried to find some target, some activity that would at least quiet that longing in my heart and my soul. One of the things we say about the type 4s is they have a tendency to retain or be more in contact with the longing to connect with the unseen, the divine, the spiritual, that they can't put to sleep. So that, as little ones, this sort of weird longing and wish for something that I can't understand has to find a target. And for myself, my imagination became my playground in many ways. And I would imagine, because I was an athlete, all kinds of scenarios, sports scenarios. I could just, sit by myself and imagine, scene after scene of a sports event, or if I had played in a game, I could go back and replay it over and over again. And my biggest outlet was playing sports. I was really lucky that I was good at sports. It came natural to me, but I was also the quietest kid on the team. And to get me to speak to other human beings was really challenging. I just didn't know what to say, and I didn't really get really wordy and more prolific until I was almost 30 years old. But the thing I felt the most throughout those years before I learned that I was an afflicted type 4 was this sense of who am I? Who really am I? I just can't sort of locate that inside of myself. Who am I and what am I doing here? And these questions weren't the best locker room questions to bring up, because no one frankly cared about that. They just wanted to know, how many hits they had or how many points they scored and when the next game was. So I didn't share that very often, but it was this deep question. And I could never sort of land in a felt sense of this is who I am. So what happened for me as a type 4, the thing that I noticed is that I had a lot of feeling, mood shifts, waves that would come through me. And I would try to locate myself in the most current feeling. So it was just, it's just like my attention always went down into my heart and my belly around noticing, since I don't know who I am, at least the feeling of the moment would give me a kind of definition. And so as a type 4, having a quite rich feeling inner nature, I would find myself deciding I was this person or that person, and would change every 40 minutes because my feelings changed. So I stayed continually confused about who am I. So I would try different things out, different identities, and they just didn't last or hold any water for me. So most of the 4s I know who I've talked to would say, yeah, this fleeting sense of I don't know who I am drives me crazy. And even when I start getting a sense of a stable identity, then what pops up for me is that terrible feeling that I'm a fraud. I'm just making it up. Nobody really sees this in me. And so there's this sense of I'm standing on quicksand almost, and always sort of dissolving into a feeling of being insignificant and, having no niche. And we talk about the basic fear of the 4, this fear of being insignificant, generic, having no personal sort of characteristics. I remember that when Russ was telling me about the type 4 back in 2006, he said the 4 feels almost as if God looks down upon him and sees nothing and turns away. There's a sense of I'm nothing. I have no distinguishing qualities. And so the basic fear, which, there's a great mystery why this fear shows up, is this sense, of under crisis, under stress, 4s will often feel this terrible loss of confidence. Even if they've done something really well, there can be this sense of, I didn't really do that. I don't know how that happened. So my sense of a stable, confident, way of being in the world, which, 3s, 7s, and 8s are awful good at that. Like they got it nailed down. This is what I do, and here I'm coming, and don't mess with my story, right? But for the 4, it's like, here I am, but I'm not sure if it's going to disappear at any moment. So I remember at one point I was talking with Don Riso, who my teacher and eventually a colleague before he passed away. And I said to him, I said, Don, every time I get ready to do a presentation, the night before, I start being barraged with feelings that I know nothing about the Enneagram, that I don't know why anybody hired me to do the workshop the next day. but they're going to find out what an incredible fraud I am. Oh my God, what am I? I'm just going to have to fake it. And he chuckled and he said, you know, every time I go out before I do a presentation, the same thing happens to me. It's like I forget that I'm one of the leading authors on the planet regarding the Enneagram. It's like I know nothing. I have this amnesia that comes through me. And, Russ, my partner, will say, come on, you're really great. You'll be okay. But like words don't reach me. And then I go onto the stage and I start to teach, and all of a sudden I'm back. And that has been the experience I've had for the past 25 years teaching. Is I walk out there going, oh boy, this is the end. And then something pops and I'm back and I'm in the groove and I feel good and I feel confident. And then, afterwards, the wish is that I would remember and retain that confident feeling I felt throughout, but then it just sort of seeps out of the bottom of my feet, and I got to go through the drill again. And sort of the joke we have in my family is, the day before a workshop, if I'm traveling, I'll be calling my wife saying, that thing is happening. I can't remember. Do I know anything about the Enneagram? Is this all BS? Did I just make this up? What's going? So it's like an amnesia. So, this loss of confidence is not uncommon for the type 4. And for other types, especially 3, 7, and 8, that loss of confidence doesn't happen quite like that. But it's almost like you just disappear right in front of yourself. So, we talk about the basic fear, which is really the core driver of the type 4 in terms of their motivation to take care of themselves, which means, okay, if I feel like I'm nobody and I'm nothing, then I got to do something that is significant, that is different than what other people do, that is, maybe challenges the status quo. And then the problem is that even after I've done it, I don't believe it, then I have to go do it again. So basic fear, insignificance, I'm a nobody, a nothing. I'm a fraud at my very best. If I've succeeded, that was an accident. And then, the secondary fear certainly is that I won't have enough depth and intensity. So those two fears, for whatever reasons, little type 4s have an Achilles heel that's very tender and sensitive to that. And each 4 develops a strategy so that they don't get pigeonholed or have that poked. And sometimes it means I just withdraw, and I'm a withdrawn type, and I don't come out except with people who I really trust. And so that said, that core, I can say this, that through the course of my life, as I go through healing from my heart and my head center and my body, I keep thinking that I won't be visited by this basic fear. And so, I just started thinking, well, it's gone. And my teacher would say, nothing is ever gone. You're never finished. But you learn to navigate the patterns maybe a little more skillfully when they arise. Sometimes you don't. And so one of the things I've noticed is the healthier I've gotten and the more courage to be and do what I love to do, when that pattern pops up, which it does, it's as intense as it's ever been. And I'm just shocked to the floor each time, like, after all the work I've done, why would I have this episode of not feeling confident when I proved to myself hundreds of times that this is no big deal? So sometimes type 4s will be really susceptible to that loss of confidence. And it can just appear out of nowhere. It's kind of like it's built into the emotional stream that runs through the type 4. And maybe every third day they get hit with it. And all of a sudden they don't feel like they're on solid ground, and it's scary. So part of the work, I think, for all of the 3s, 4s, is what do I do in the face of this kind of disturbance? You could say there's what one of my type 4 friends, what we talk about a lot is this question: is the tide in today, or is the tide out? Tide in means I'm awake, I'm alert, I've got some confidence, I've got energy to do what I'm doing. I'm not floundering on the bed of insecurity. Tide's out. I'm in the void. I can't remember what's meaningful. everything seems kind of meaningless. And on my gravestone, it will say he died a fraud, but it's a sad story, and so carry on, right? So, I mean, these are some of the weird, strange things that happen with four. Now, what we know about fours, when they're healthy, they often have a really strong intuitive capacity. If they have a particular art that they care about, painting, drawing, writing, dancing, etc., at their very best, they really become intuitively channel. They become channels for creativity coming through. It's kind of like, I was listening to Bob Dylan, who's a type 4, I believe, but a strong type 5 wing, and also Leonard Cohen, another great writer, singer, musician, and they both said, our very best stuff, we don't know where it came from. It was just presented to us. Bob Dylan said for the first 3 or 4 years, songs would just come through his head and he just wrote them down. He didn't know where they came from. He just kept recording. He was like a recorder. And Leonard Cohen said the same thing. And I've noticed for myself that the writing that tends to be my best and clearest and strongest comes out of nowhere. I don't know where it came from. And if I could repeat it, I would do it instantly. And, it's almost like what we talk about creativity is something that is not necessarily in my control. I show up for it. I make myself receptive to it, and sometimes the light is on, and sometimes it's not. So that said, I'm sort of babbling a bit here, but I would welcome any questions, anything that's popping up for you, and see if we can't get a conversation going here.
Awesome. So if you have a comment or question or whatever, raise your hand and I will call it. I think this must be a shy Monday. Go ahead, Joe.
Hi. I'm just about the shyest. I hate public speaking. I hate talking in front of people, but it's helping me so much. So I just need to say what I notice is I have to present something every quarter. So 4 times a year. Tomorrow I'm doing it for work, for a charity. I'm doing it for something like the 20th time. And I'm a complete wreck. And I've got through it 20 times. And it's always the same. And it's only a few minutes. And when you said disappearing in front of yourself, that's exactly what it feels like. It's just like, I don't know anything. Why am I even here? It's absolutely extraordinary. But I don't know how to, because every time I tell all my friends, I'm doing it again. And then afterwards they're like, how was it? And I was like, it was fine. And it's like, why can't I, like you said, it's hard to hold on to that feeling and think, but it's fine. I can do this. Is that anything I can do?
I've been wrestling with it for 25 years, and it's humbling, that's for sure. I mean, and it feels embarrassing, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do? And what my mentor says that you just have to plan for it. It's going to come up. You got to be with it in the most compassionate way you can, and then you have to walk with it on stage and present, and don't fight it. And what usually happens, Michael? Well, it disappears once I'm up in front of people. It's gone. First I disappear in front of myself, then I'm walking in there with nothing, and then I get on stage, and all of my history, wisdom, etc. comes through, and usually it feels like it really flows. And then afterwards I realize I don't know how to hold on to this. I don't have a way of anchoring it. So what I have do in the short term is I surrender to it. I surrender. This is a pattern. Some patterns, it doesn't haunt me as bad as it did, but occasionally it will haunt me worse. It just seems to be part of my hard wiring. And part of it, really, the test for me is to really bring compassion to myself and not beat myself up and shame myself and do all the favorite type 4 things of saying I'm broken, I'm defective, and I'm a fraud and blah blah blah. But just compassion, And but it's so all the types have some sort of haunting pattern that recurs, and this seems to be one that's really strong for the type 4, almost like a complete loss of memory of what I'm good at. You could call it an amnesia of success, and so the key, the way I work with it is I just keep stepping forward and stepping through it. And each time feeling like a little boy who didn't do his homework, and oh no, I'm going to be booed off the stage, and then I show up, and it's quite a drill.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Anna, to you.
Thank you. Good morning. I completely relate to everything you said. I'm a big fan of Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen, but I completely relate because I feel like when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I follow the setting, yet feel like an outsider. I have no outstanding features physically, socially, emotionally. In general, don't feel like I connect. And I have to think about myself and my reactions to have to prove myself constantly. What do you think about that? Is that a low 4? Or
well, no, I don't think it has anything to do with a level of health. I just think it's one of the quirky little tortures that the type 4 inherited from God knows where. And so part of the challenge for me, what I found helps a bit, is that if I'm doing on a regular basis a meditation practice that puts me into the sensations of my body. So one of the things I do when I'm getting ready to go on stage, and my imagination, we talk about 4's imagination, fantasy world, they can catastrophize as well as others, but usually it's that sense of just disappearing. So what I try to do is make sure that while I've disappeared, I can still sense my body. There's a way I've got awareness in my legs or in my hands, or when I sit down before I start a presentation, I usually do a practice of contacting my body, and that tends to bring me through the fog quicker, but it doesn't get rid of it. So it does set me up for that great sort of scourging that 4s go through of being defective or something's wrong with me. But I have not met too many 4s who don't know what this is like, this sense of loss of confidence and disappearing right in front of yourself. And it's like, it takes a leap of faith to keep stepping through it. But the other option, earlier in my life, when that would happen, I would head out the opposite direction. So I'd lose a lot of opportunities. Or if I wasn't. So here's another thing that sort of goes along with the 4. It's a sense of sometimes being dominated by the idea that unless I'm feeling positive about something, I shouldn't do it, right? So if I followed that as I get ready to present the day before, I am not feeling inspired by what I have to do. I'm terrified and lost. And in the past, I would have left an opportunity. Maybe I was getting ready to perform. Maybe I was getting ready to do something in front of somebody, and I would just book it because I was so embarrassed. And then, it took a while to realize I just had to walk through it and not trust my feeling. Yeah. So.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Anna. Fiona, to you.
Yeah, hi Michael. Hi everybody. Yeah. It went quiet, so I thought I'd say something. And now everybody wants to say something, but yeah, just a lot of identification, when you were saying about, that thing about doubting yourself. And my mantra would have been feeling lost and confused, especially before recovery. I'm just feel lost and confused, feel like other people aren't, but I am, and that thing about familiarity, even something that I've done, like every second month, I would drive to my brother's house, would be an hour's drive, and I'd sometimes talk it through to my husband because I think, I don't know it enough, even though I did it for years, there's that doubting,
Mm-hmm.
And and I thought maybe I was bipolar because of that intense feelings. And then, you know, the identification, it's like I've been Cher, I've been Madonna, and people will say this to me, oh, you're like Cher, you're like Madonna, it's just like, oh my God, and sorry, just trying to get in there with some things. And then this shame thing, I'm going to be a secretary of an AA meeting just like this Thursday, and I feel a bit red. I used to spend a lot of my time just being red, embarrassed, this shame, like used to have to wear powder, buy special makeup to cover my face when I was younger. And now this thing, like, I haven't drunk for 15 years, but I'm thinking, oh, I'm a vanilla alcoholic. And I know I'm an addict to my core, that it can be a 1,000-piece puzzle. But just thinking that, and also thinking that thing about, that I'm, what's the word? Maybe I've got a learning difference. I mean, I've got O/A levels, but just kind of thinking that, like, everybody knows things that I don't, can hold things together more than I can. So maybe actually I've got a learning difference. Maybe I'm mentally not really up there. And even though when I was young, I used to read like, existentialist books like Camus and Simone de Beauvoir and, all those things like Beckett, who am I, like you said. So I just got a lot of identification. So thank you.
Yeah, and I know for myself, one of the things that helps me is I have another dear friend who's a type 4, so that when I get caught in the knots of the inner world of the type 4, I can sit down and talk with her, and it's not strange or weird. It's like, oh yeah, I was there 3 days ago, and there's something about having that reflected and normalized, that this is just the territory that I swim in, and that sometimes it is very baffling, and that part of my work is how do I learn to navigate this such that I show up for things I really care about and can give my very best. And what sort of support do I need if I'm starting to sort of go out the back door? And so it's not something to be gotten rid of. If anybody could have gotten rid of it, would have been me. I mean, I've done enough therapy and inner work for the past 40 years, and it has not touched it at this point. And some things, as my teacher said, some patterns are immortal. You're not going to get rid of them. You just get humbled by them. You navigate them. You develop a sense of humor about them. If I sit down with my friend Leah to talk about forest stuff, she'll say, "How are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm out to sea, very far away, and there's there are sharks that are eating my feet as we speak, and I'll come up with some sort of story that has a little bit of humor to it, and there's something about putting it out in a dark but humorous way that starts to quiet it down. So doing it alone, I think it's important to have another 4 in your life that you can spill it out so it doesn't take up so much time in your head.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. And Celia, to you.
Hi. Okay. I just wanted to say that it is a relief to know that as a child, I had this longing, and I didn't know if it was just a longing. And I remember this nun asking me if I wanted to be a nun. And I was like, I don't think so, because I had this longing. They thought I was called to do, and I was like, but I went along with it because I didn't have the courage to say no. I was just a little kid, like, 6 years old, and they're already wanting to make me a nun. So what a relief. And the waves of feelings that I get, it drives my husband crazy because he says, you're bipolar. You have to be, or you're manic depressant because you're so high and you want to save the world and save everybody. And then the next minute, you're back down so low. And I've even thought about, telling my doctor, I think I'm bipolar. bipolar, and see, they would give me a medication, of course. And I'm like, I'm so glad I don't have to be medicated for that, you know. But the depression lives with me and I cannot get rid of it. It's in my soul. And I guess I just have to continually work at being happy and just present where I'm at. It's a continual battle. It just is, and it's painful. But it, you know, and I don't want to be, you know, on anybody's pity potty list. It's just the way it is, you know. And
Well, I
you're
think depression's
okay,
okay.
my question is, when someone so close to you, like a grandchild, dies, it just, you know, there is no confidence. There is no nothing. There's just this shell that's working and smiling because others are hurt too. And I'm thinking about them, not about me. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And even after 3 years, my heart just, same thing with my mom, but not with my dad. With my dad, I was so happy that he wasn't suffering anymore. I had such a sense of spirituality. I mean, I was on a high for like 2 months until I went to someone else's funeral. And then I just bawled like a baby, which I hadn't done for my dad. It was crazy.
One of the
I
things
feel like
that's really true
so.
for me as a type 4 is early on I would notice these swings to the, you know, what do we say about type 4s is sometimes the way they can locate themselves is either in the highs or in the lows. It's like at least then I feel like I have something substantial in me, and so the tendency can be to, you know, idealize something and get all excited about it, and you know, and then have fall through, and you drop down into feeling really bad about the fact that somehow you gave your soul to some idea, and this extreme thing. I mean, one of the things that's really important about meditation is that if you learn to develop a quiet inside, at least when you're doing your meditation, over time, what happens is you stop having the giant swings. They start to have sort of lower swings to them. You're not going to get rid of them, but there's something about serious meditation that starts to build in something called equanimity, so that you don't hit the pavement so hard, or you don't launch out into the sky like Icarus into the sun too often. There's a kind of stabilizing emotional state that occurs over time, and it involves a number of things. One is meditation. One is doing kind of inner work to heal whatever broke your heart as a little one. And that said, you know, the one of the jewels of the type 4 is being able to feel things deeply. But the challenge is, how do I feel things deeply and not get stuck there? So I can't sort of pull myself out of the swamp. And I think that's where therapy comes in. That's where, you know, I've gone through periods in my life where I hit depression so hard I could barely move, and medication is what saved me for a period of time. So, you know, we try whatever we need to stabilize us. Nothing wrong with medication when it works. It's incredible. It's a lifesaver. But it's just to say that type 4s of all the types are the ones that are most susceptible to depression. And so, again, what do I do for depression? I make sure I exercise 5 days a week. I make sure I meditate every day. I make sure I eat a balanced diet that isn't all full of sugar. You know, 4s love sugar. I love sugar. I'd eat a bag of M&Ms every day if I could, but I can't. But anything that, you know, keeps my emotional state more even is going to be good for me. So thank you for that, Celia.
Thank you,
Thank
Celia.
you.
Thank you, Michael. Ambra, to you.
Thank you. You know, I'm in flow. I forgot my question, but thank you so much, Michael. I'm 4. Yeah. yeah, I want to ask you, but maybe you answer my question around how can I do with my strong sensitivity that destroy me until the point that I can't do anything. Like, okay, I'm an artist, but I'm not able to do nothing because happens something, in relationship with, I don't know, coworker or whatever, and all is done. I really struggle around I don't want to hate my sensitivity because it's my gift, it's my grace too. But I want to ask you how you shift and transform your sensitivity and how you can deal with that. Because in my case, it's not only about fraud or if I have success, it's up and down, up and down. I had in my past a lot of success. And after that, I feel sick. I'm strong. Now I did like some surgery and, I was really strong there. I spoke with all people in my room, but in some time I cry a lot. Yeah, really, I'm bipolar too. And I was, my ex-partner was bipolar, and I know what I spoke about. And yeah, and another key, sorry, and the last thing, it's really about the body that you say. I'm done to don't listen my body and go a lot in my mind when happens something, the abuse. It's like some survival reaction. I want to learn to listen my body and some seconds say, okay, it's not my place. Like polyvagal stuff. It's not my place. My body don't like that. And that's it. Bye bye. I want to learn to say that and break the pattern. But yeah, that's it. I continue to see that my life go, and in some point something happened that trigger me, and I go and go back. That's my pattern, like a four. I can go on in my life. It's continue up and down, go and back, go and back. Oh my God. But what is your, I don't know, your method to deal with this drama inside? I don't know. That's it.
Well, it's really the challenge for each four to figure out what is it that helps me to not be so taken by the swings, the mood swings, the ups and downs. And I only, the best I have to offer is what my experience is. And that has involved probably, doing all sorts of different spiritual practices to start to learn to neutralize or at least calm myself, such that today I can, in the beginning, if I felt a sadness, it would like go into my core and I couldn't get rid of it, right? I would just walk around with this terrible sadness all day. And I had a habit of sort of drinking in whatever the suffering was and drinking it in when it wasn't even mine to drink in. There was a sense, we say about the type fours, they're very porous, and things around them, impressions, get inside them quite powerfully and quickly. So what do I do about that? Well, one of the things I can do is to make sure I've got some kind of creative expression I'm doing on a regular basis that, in a sense, starts to move some of that suffering and put it into an external expression. The other thing that was huge for me, and I think this is huge for a lot of us, is to make sure that every day I journal for 15 minutes and get all of this stuff out of my body and my head and get it on the page so it's not just rocking around inside of me, because I know what happens for me if I don't have a way of processing it externally. It just gets more dense and intense, and my moods go up more and more and more. And if I don't have an exercise pattern that kind of drains it down and also puts me in my body, I'm a sitting duck, And so one of the sayings that we have for the fours is, if you have any creative capacity and you're not using your creativity, it will use you in the form of depression, anxiety, nervousness. It's really important for fours to get some kind of expression that they show up for regularly that allows them to channel their soul and their deeper unconscious feelings. So that and it's great to have a good therapist to work with, or a coach, or another type 4. Certainly what's really been important for me is to make sure I have a group of people I show up for who are on a spiritual path, which for me is the Gurdjieff work, where we're always processing and deepening our ability to be present, which really quiets some of that emotional noise that drives force crazy. So that's only about 8 things to do.
Thank you, Michael.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Ambra. Thank you, Michael. And Vera, to you.
We're taking some time to unmute. So thank you so much, Michael. I've discovered the Enneagram 2 months ago, and I'm just completely in awe. And I've been listening to your YouTube interviews of 4s, and that's been so helpful, but so helpful. I'm in a 12-step program, and I think I hit a lot of resistance on my 6th and 7th step because I'm willing, right? But it doesn't go away. It's still here. So it's been very, 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 it's being very, very helpful to see it from just out of the box, just outside that defect of character, which, to be honest, I don't really think that I have any will on. So I completely related to what you said about this, these feelings. And I think that as a 12-stepper, you hear that feelings aren't facts and that fear is false evidence appearing real. And through your interviews, I've actually found a lot of humor on this, and that is amazing because everything becomes a lot lighter. So I'm laughing about, oh God, no. So just watching this feeling, the feelings, watching them, which I guess it's meditation, but I'm too hyper to be able to sit in meditation still. So anyway, but my difficulty, and I've heard you talk about this, but I didn't actually get it. It's not the feelings, although of course it is the feelings. Just for today, it isn't. My feelings aren't depressing me or overwhelming me, but it's much more that when I say I don't know where this came from, I literally don't know whether it's going to be there the next morning. And I don't have a creative profession, although I try to insert creativity, but it's pretty much, I just know that I can't be in the corporate world because I cannot promise that I'll be there 5 days a week and actually, deliver. But it's really, really scary. And what I've also found is because it's been with me since I was a kid. I don't know where it came from. It comes really easily. So other people kind of don't value it that much, or do. Nowadays, they do more. When I was a kid, nobody valued, why is it that I can do this? Because I couldn't explain it and I still can't. But it's not, it's that the way to get out of that is very often through anger and obsession, which in themselves are very, very harmful to myself, to me, to my energy. So if I become obsessive about repeating something over and over, I'll do it, but it's sort of like I'm forcing it, and it hurts, and it's tiring, and the anger, it's the anger of I'll prove that I can do this, which is also not good because what comes out is absolutely not the outcome I want. Because I can become impossible, around, I've got 5 kids and all of them will tell you that at some stage I will become impossible if I'm obsessing about work, for instance. So do you have any strategies for that? Or do I just need to accept that it's like a muse? Although I'm a lawyer, it's going to be a muse, which is kind of, a contradiction in terms. But anyway.
Well, again, what, you're describing sort of like the trance that you get caught in and the ingredients of the trance. And so, every 4 has a slightly different way they get caught in the trance. And I have to really be prepared for the idea that that trance could show up tomorrow morning out of nowhere. And so how does that affect me? Well, all of a sudden, I can be on following a creative project that gives me energy. And then suddenly I will just feel dead towards it. I won't have any feeling towards it. And I have to try different strategies. One is to not worry about how much feeling I have, but to continue with the creative work. And since I'm a writer, you know, that means sometimes I can just give you an example. Every morning when I get up to write, you would think I would be inspired, but I get hit with this incredible boredom. Like, oh my God, I'm sitting before these words and I'm feeling this terrible boredom. And my teacher said, no big deal. It's boredom. Just keep writing. See what happens. You know, trust that something will come through. And so one of the things I've found is that some of my best writing has occurred when I'm feeling dead boring. And the next day I read it and I go, oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever written. Where was I in this thing? I was just feeling bored. So there's something to be said about, you know, when we talk about creativity, it doesn't need to be some large scale thing. It might simply be, I sit down for 10 minutes and just follow the flow of my words and see what shows up. I'm not trying for anything. I'm only trying to create room. So maybe, you know, you sit down for a 10-minute write and you write about the obsession and you write about the struggle or whatever it is that's coming through you, but you give it freedom to land on the page without judging yourself or beating yourself up or thinking, I need to write a Nobel Peace Prize piece here. No, you can write the most terrible crap on the planet. It doesn't matter as long as you're there following the next thought, writing it down. You know, I think using a pen and paper is probably the strongest way, but it doesn't need to be. So there's that. And then, you know, in terms of meditation, people have a tendency to start too big. So I always encourage people to start with a 1-minute meditation. So if I'm a type 4, you know, I sit down and, you know, this is my meditation for 1 minute. I just follow my breath. And as I try to follow my breath, I notice my brain takes me all over the place, you know, to Jupiter, to New York, and back again. But I just notice, oh, okay, active mind, and I bring my attention back to my breath. And I try to do it 1 minute a day. And if I start to feel some connection with it, I'll move it to 2 minutes a day. And what people tend to do is they think I got to sit down for 20 minutes or 30 minutes to be able to meditate. And you don't. Start small. Allow it to build. If the further you get, if as far as you get is 5 minutes, 5 minutes is golden. If you can learn to sit and be with your breath, notice your thoughts, bring your attention back. You're not trying to get anywhere. You're not trying to accomplish anything. And from time to time, your mood and your head center will get really quiet. And then you'll start thinking about it and we'll mess it up and you have to start over again. So, you know, so there's, or if you have, you know, I always say for type 4s, find at least 15 minutes a day to get in your body and exercise, whether it's walking, swimming, dancing is great, lifting weights, but 15 minutes a day so you're contacting your body is really important for stabilizing moods. And keep talking about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vera. And Lauren, to you.
Hello. Hi,
Hi.
Michael.
Hello.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to ask a couple questions from the book because Cher was diligent in reminding us if we had the time to go back and read it. And it was a different read than a couple months ago, having learned some things. So I appreciate that.
Awesome.
So I have at least 3 or 4 questions. I'm going to knock it down to 2.
Okay.
You mentioned towards the beginning this you said when the 4s arrive at a treatment center, he seems as if he is cloaked in a thick black veil. Got that? Understand the thick black veil, right? And then the next sentence is mysterious. He exudes a faraway aura. I wondered if you could speak to the faraway aura a little bit, this distance thing.
Well, I think there's what I notice about, well, I notice one of 2 things. There are some 4s who show up and they just vomit everything that's going on and you can't shut them up and they're just, you know, and because they're trying to get healthy. There's other 4s that are deeply withdrawn. They wear all black. They're kind of silent. They sort of sit back. They're watching everybody in the room and their aura is such that they're saying, you know, don't bother me because you're either ridiculous or an idiot and I'm over here and actually I'm terrified but the way I'm consoling myself is to feel like I'm unique and different, but actually I'm not sure that anybody cares about me. So there can be kind of this withdrawn type 4 that's really far away, and then the others that are just come in like they're just spilling everything, and either, what's great about the ones that are spilling everything is they just tell the truth. It just pours out. It's like what it's like at a recovery meeting where there's a newcomer and they finally let go and just tell their story, and it's like the most awesome thing you've heard, and it's just so filled with honesty and gutsiness. So some 4s show up that way, and then the challenge for them is, how do I learn to be quiet and listen, because I'm just so compelled to tell my story. So anyway, that's.
And some of us, I think, vacillate between those two. I mean, I can do the black dark thing, and I can wear colors all over the place, and yeah. So can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Yes.
And what I wanted to say to that too is, you mentioned the cave and the mountain, and it feels like my 4 and my 5 wings. Sometimes I'll go to the achievement and like have to keep climbing. And other times I just go hide out in the cave and like leave me alone. Anyways. So my other question, I just found it. I got my question mark here. Darn it, where is it? Oh no, here it is. Okay. So let's see. You will witness the 4 changing direction repeatedly, starting and stopping with the latest inspiration or mood swing. So close to home. That touches him. Your work is in helping him to be here where his feet are. So I heard you giving advice to be grounded, really. And I've been doing that for the last year and a half, 2 years with a therapist. And I'm a yoga instructor. I've done yoga a long time. I know what it means to be in my body. I've benefited from it.
Great.
Well, the funny thing is, when she told me to do that, I couldn't feel my feet. I can feel things up here. I can't feel, my feet are like feathers. So I'm just wondering, and I've been working on feeling my feet. She had to give me like a movement, like in your body practice, not the feet thing, like a year and a half, it just didn't go very far. So it's this movement that I process, this excess energy that I think Vera might have been talking about a little bit. Now I'm getting lost in my thoughts, and I'm having like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, that's your inner critic speaking.
Yeah, that's my critic getting out.
So let
But
me ask,
so are there 2 ways, getting out of your body by the top and getting out of your body by the bottom, like feet and head?
so if I heard you correctly, you were saying that sometimes that you have a hard time sensing your feet.
Oh yeah. Even
Okay.
though I'm totally in touch with my body, what I mean,
Yeah.
right, but not my feet.
Well, and so that's not uncommon. In the critique work, one of the jokes is that sometimes it takes 7 years to finally be able to sense your feet. But in the short term, what my mentor said to me is, if you can't sense your feet, then wiggle them so that you feel their movement, and just hold that attention on the movement of the toes, whether they're curling or reaching upwards, but use that as a start point. There will come a time when you'll feel the kind of electricity in the feet. It'll just be the same kind of flow you have in your hands or in your arms. The more you keep working on putting put your attention there, be patient, wiggle the toes, squeeze them, because the toes, we know, are really incredibly sensitive. All you have to do is stub your toe to be reminded of how alive the toes are. But for some reason, sensing them in the beginning can be really challenging. It can feel like it's 20 miles from my head to my feet.
Yeah, and I just find it super confusing. Like, I even have resistance, and it twists my stomach, sort of thinking about placing my awareness in my feet.
Oh.
The only time I feel it, like kind of when I can do it, is maybe yoga or meditation, but when I go outside to ground. But most of the time, like, I'm flying out up here. Anyways,
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I just say keep working on practicing. As I'm sitting here right now, I can put half of my attention in my feet, in the bottom of my feet. I can sense them. And so I can listen to you, and I can take in your words, and I can also put some attention down on my feet and sense them. And that's a practice you can use. It's kind of like chewing gum and juggling and moving your head back and forth at the same time. That's okay. Mostly it's a practice of putting my attention from my head center down into my feet and down in through my body, because that's one of the primary practices in a lot of the traditional schools is to put attention down into each part of the body so that you can feel the sensation. And, when you're doing great yoga, I always notice a flow through my body. I can feel the electrical currents, but I can, as I'm sitting here, I can put my attention on my fingers and they will start to vibrate. And some people have really easy access to their hands, others don't. So it's just a matter of practicing that. If you read anything by Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the power of now and the importance of just learning to sense your fingers. As you learn to sense your fingers inside and out, that the sensation starts to move up your leg and up through your arm. So it's all learnable.
I think it's just so weird that I have so much resistance. Like when I sense the resistance, it actually triggers a ton of fear. And it's like, what is that? Anyways.
Well, I just say, go with the fear, sense the fear. That's what presents. And so I wouldn't try to get rid of it. I'd go, whoa, I try to sense my feet and all of a sudden I'm in a ball of fear. This isn't my favorite thing to do, but I guess I'll just sort of, not resist it. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, and I want to say one thing. If you have a chance to go to my YouTube channel, there's probably 9 or 10 interviews of type 4s, and you really get you really get a sense of the nuances of the 4s and just how you are in a beloved family and you're not alone in any way, shape, or form. So if you get a chance to check those out, I really recommend it.
And I just want to say there is a path through the depression. When I was young, I was terribly depressed, and I do a lot of these things that you mentioned, and there is hope for us 4s. We can look like 7s. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Michael. Cheryl, West New York, from you to you.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so very much. I feel so honored and thankful that you're here today.
Oh, thank you.
I was so nervous that I almost bit all my fingers, my nails off, waiting for my name to be called. And in the meantime, I wrote down just a few notes here. And it says, I want to ask Michael a question, but I'm sure it will sound stupid. I am a nobody, so I shouldn't ask a question of the famous Michael Naylor. I have done nothing in my life to speak of. Everyone else's share sounds so powerful, so helpful, and mine is going to be ridiculous. Don't bother, Cheryl. Just do not bother doing this. I also sat in OA meetings for weeks and weeks and weeks, turned into months, and could not turn my camera on. I could not speak. I could not turn my camera on. I was sure I was going to be picked apart, whatever I said. And so millions of people were abused when they were younger, yet they went on to become or do something important in their life. Why did I let the bullying I received affect my whole entire life?
Well, you were inside of my head. I mean, these thoughts are not unfamiliar at all. Thank you for sharing that. And that's the inner critic voice of the type 4, that comparing, so one of the things that's I find is true. It's like I go through some version of what you're talking about on a regular basis. I can go to an AA meeting. I've been sober for 44 years. I can walk in, and if I'm in a sort of strange state, I can suddenly feel like I'm an outsider. I don't know anything about recovery. Nobody here will like me. I will just say stupid things. And in fact, I don't like them either. There's not, I'll go into a thing of, these people are strange people. What am I doing with them? Well, I'm strange, and they think I'm strange, and all this kind of racket in my head. So what I try to do when all that voice noise is going on is I try to bring some of my attention into my body. I find my breath and my body and try to divide my attention so it's not all up in this terrible storm of bad thoughts and you're horrible and for me, if I can bring some attention down into my body, this headspace gets a little neutralized. It's not so compelling. My head's not completely in the movie of my disastrous life, right? And because the problem with that voice, it can find whatever I've done, that there's something wrong with it and that it's my fault. And I shouldn't be here. If I knew how to take care of things, I wouldn't be in this jam, which are all not true. But that's the way the voice speaks. So, if you have a practice, or just even, as you're, if you're noticing you're caught in the storm of those thoughts, just try to bring some attention into your body and maybe even write it out like the way you did. That was great. It was articulate. It really captured the spirit of it. And then share it with another 4 and you go, I'm with you. I know what that is. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl. Melissa, to you.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Melissa.
Oh my gosh. During your opening act, I was weeping with relating, and I thought, oh my God, this man who has done so much for all of us, he goes through this too. Well, that's sort of heartening, and it's also sort of terrifying that you say it doesn't really go away. Because I was hoping that, with a little bit of pushing past some of the initial fears, that eventually you start to get your mojo. It's the weirdest thing about being a 4. You literally don't know from day to day which person you're going to be. And I know that might be confusing to people who don't have this situation, but all I can do is just kind of tell my husband in advance, the real me isn't quite here today. Like, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I'll do my best. I'll really try to not wallow, because I wallow and I try to figure out why I'm feeling bad. And in the moment, I cannot. And then when I've crossed over the other side, I have a lot of clarity. Suddenly it's like, other people have said this who are 4s. When I'm feeling great, I can't even remember not feeling good. It's like I am 2 different people. And I'm not willing to be on medication for it. I was on antidepressants for almost 30 years. And ultimately, it didn't really help. There was sort of a numbing that I don't want to do. So I'm willing to feel my feelings. And I will tell you too, I think that your advice about exercising is incredibly helpful, because the best I've felt is when I've been vigorously exercising just 3 times a week. It restores a sense of balance and being in my body. And when I am very depressed, if I go to yoga, what that means, if I go to a class, is I will hear a teacher talk for an hour and I'll be out of my head. And that's a meditation that lulls me into a sense of safety and peace. So exercise has been very helpful. Anyway, I'm just so grateful for you.
Well, just on the positive side, if I was to look at progress I've made in the past 40 years and looked at the overview, I'd say there's been huge progress regarding not getting eaten by the moods or having them take me away from what I care about, and being able to work with them and move through them and still show up. And it's, every morning I get up, I can say, okay, tomorrow morning I'm going to jump right into this project. And I get up in the morning and go, oh, I don't want to do that at all. And I'm encouraged by my teacher to go do what I had decided to do, regardless of my mood. And that's been a big shift for me, to be able to show up for my goals, regardless of whether my mood's taking me in the opposite direction. So all of these things over time have allowed me to show up more often and be present with people and with, and thank God, that I've had so much support over the years, but it is quite shocking to get taken out. And the good news today is, if I'm taken out by a mood, I ask for help as soon as possible from somebody that I trust, because they're so, the thing about the mood swings is they feel so real, like whatever's coming through, like this is reality, right? And, people around you might say, well, snap out of it, for Pete's sake. If I could snap out of it, I would, but I may have to intensify it so you actually get that I'm feeling this, so there can be an opposite reaction to people trying to shut down the feeling.
Yeah. So true. I can see how exhausting I must have been for my parents. I really feel for them. I mean, it's not easy to have a kid that is full of feelings. And my father said on my wedding night, or my mother, I don't know what, but when Missy's happy, everybody's happy. And when Missy's not happy, nobody's happy. And it's a little embarrassing, but it's like, I spread it, and I love it when I'm in my happy place, because I know I'm a light for others. And when I'm not happy, I'm worried for you guys, because I know it's like a horrible smell or something like that. Everybody's affected. And I would love it if I could I wish I had a remote control where I could switch the channel in my brain and get back to, but I don't have that. So it is chop wood, carry water, meditate, spirituality, share, go to meetings, check in with how I really am, and keep going and don't give up.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is I have an emergency first aid list that I put on a little card, a 3x5, or a business card like this. And so I have the things I can do if I get caught. Let's say, for instance, at my worst, as you were sort of alluding to, I'm in a tough place emotionally. It feels like I can emit black tar throughout a whole, 4s can be the biggest downers of all when they're in a bad place and they're not conscious enough to know how to get out of it. Everybody goes down with them. And then after everybody goes down with them, they pop up and go, what's wrong with you guys? You're so down today. I'm in a good mood, right? But I have a list of, journal, exercise, meditate, bring my attention into my body, call my mentor, go for a run, so that when I get caught in a pattern, if I remember that I have the list, that's the big thing, then I go to one of those and I just do it regardless of the state I'm in. And that can speed things up, but I haven't gotten rid of it yet.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, you, Michael. So Meredith, before I call on you, hold on just a second. So there's quite a few questions about subtypes, and Michael is covering the instincts. And by the way, the subtypes are the type with the 3 different instincts, right? So that's when we say subtypes, that's what we're talking about. So first Fridays, so March 7th is the next one that he'll cover more of the self-preservation instinct. So you will want to go to that. I think it'll help everybody a lot to see that. If it's really resonating with you, the 4, that's great. But there's also a possibility that you are a 4, but you're a subtype that doesn't present like you might be a counter subtype. So on the subtype stuff, we're not going to cover that today because there's other things out there. And when Michael interviews the people that he interviews, you'll notice differences between them. And those are subtype differences. Those are that instinct differences when you go out to his YouTube channel and watch the interviews that he does with 4s. Okay, thank you. All right, Meredith, to you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hello, Michael. Hello, everybody. My question is just about neurodivergent conditions and whether type 4s show up more as autistic or with ADHD, if you've seen some data or experience of something like that, maybe even misdiagnosis, you're just a type 4.
There isn't any really good data out there at this point, and so I can't speak from that angle. Sometimes people ask me, are 4s more inclined to struggle with addiction? And my experience is all the types struggle with addiction equally. It's not just the 4s. 4s might do it more dramatically, but they're all the other types get hooked on addictions and all the varieties of ways they do. So was there another question there? Did I miss what you were saying?
No, it's my experience is that I'm clearly, I'm really a type 4, but my ex-partner, and who was a therapist, said without any knowledge of the Enneagram, she would say you have complex mental issues, and said you should get a diagnosis. And I'm on a waiting list. But really, what I'm doing is managing all these type 4
Adams.
Things, symptoms, conditions. Yeah, and I've sort of,
Well, so maybe instead of having complex, well, there is a complexity to the pattern of the four, but I would throw in creative. It's if there's a, if I can get to the creative mat, there's whatever it is my particular potential is, that often can take some of that scrambled up mess inside of me, and it comes out in a creative form that's unusual and different. But it's challenging, and it's not you could say the neuroses of the four is not linear. It's not like, well, I can understand point A to get to point B. It's more like fish is swimming all around, and I'm trying to locate the one that grounds me and brings me into presence. So, it's challenging. If you're not a four, it can feel like, boy, that is some tough territory. And I hear sometimes people say, gee, I wish I was a four. And I think, I don't know why you'd want to be a four.
Yeah.
So,
really,
no, very challenging.
Careful what you wish for. Yeah. Very, and I'd just like to also say that physical work, the body work you mentioned, has been a real game changer for me. Yes. And I particularly found Feldenkrais to be helpful in that reorientating from inside and working from the inside out rather than just everything coming from the outside all the time. Yeah. It's really helped in surprising ways. A sense of so I don't know, I can walk away from things now and take care of myself.
Awesome.
Rather than completely freak out. But on that subject of freaking out, I when I get taken out by the night before stuff, the dread, the anxiety before some sort of appointment or responsibility, something to do with work, maybe, I found it so painful. And even when I showed up and it went okay, the exhaustion was just so great that I decided, actually, I'm going to experiment in a Feldenkrais way with less is more, reduce the effort, find another way, and just remove this stuff that makes you anxious from your life for a while. Simplify your schedule, eliminate everything basically except my OA meetings and scheduled meals and things, and get creative. I do something creative now, but anyway.
Well, yeah, along the lines of creativity, if there's something that brings joy, for type 4s, nurturing joy is another powerful tool. Because the tendency for type 4 is, if I'm down and feeling bad, it's almost like there's an inner story that says, if I let myself feel as bad as possible, somehow I'll come out the other side and I'll be better. But the idea of engaging in joyful activity, or as I think Barry was saying, if you listen to the type 4 interviews, you'll see or hear a lot of humor, and humor, developing humor around what can feel like such serious stuff. If I can learn to laugh at myself and not take myself so seriously, it relaxes some of that heavy dread I can drop into. So, anything you do to lighten your relationship with it is very powerful. And most 4s have a pretty great sense of humor if they've been at it for a while.
Yeah, pretty dark.
Dark humor is awful good.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Meredith, very much. Binti, to you. There you go.
Hi. Yes, sorry, I had trouble unmuting. Hi, thank you so much. I have laughed so many times this evening. I'm just going to run through some of the things I identified with, because I've never actually opened my mouth when I've heard you speaking. I'm a type 4. I don't think it says it up on my plaque. I'm also 40-something years in recovery, and I can walk into a meeting and feel, what the hell am I doing here? And all the things that you just described. and make myself stay in the seat until the end sometimes. And I also have this thing of, and I've had it forever, that before something, it's like I demand of my thinking that I hold everything in one little piece of awareness. It's like everything I know about all of it, to convince myself that it's okay, I'm prepared. I have this expectation inside that I can see the whole in one tiny flash of awareness. And when I don't, poof, you know, completely fall out of confidence. So I kind of know that one about myself. The other thing you said that I really related to was about giving your soul to some idea. And I know that about myself because I managed to get the diagnosis of bipolar in my 20s. I was 2 years sober and I just wanted an explanation. You know, and even before I stopped drinking, I was running around doctors going, I'm sure there's something wrong with my pituitary gland. I'm sure there's something wrong with my heart. You know, anything obscure that would give some explanation as to why I felt like I wasn't wired right. And it wasn't just the drink, because it carried on after I stopped drinking. And just that feeling of cheating myself, because when I managed to get the label of bipolar, I never believed it for a second because I knew I'd manipulated it. It was like it never worked for me. Labels have never worked. The only thing that works is that awareness, is dropping into actually just trying to make sense, being present. The other thing I really related to was the exercise. I just had a week of doing a lot of academic stuff, and the backlog has come in so quick. And I know the only thing I can do to help myself is to go for a really long walk and just shake it out and dance it out and all the things you described. And one of the things I'm finding really, sorry, it's just rolling out because I've never actually opened my mouth here before. One of the things I'm finding really helpful at the moment, I trained as an art therapist years ago, and I was an artist before, and I'm doing a refresh in something called sensory motor art therapy, which is bottom up, and it's very much working with archetypal symbols, and it's bilateral, and you work with your eyes closed when you're actually doing that, and it's very much about flow, but it's the deepest embodying, shifting practice that I've found in a long time, and I'm really excited about that. So I just wanted to share that as well. What else have I written down? Oh, and the creative outlet. If I'm out of balance and I'm not, that isn't flowing and it's not breathing. When you said if you don't use it, it uses you, I so relate to that, and I've noticed that pretty much all my life. That it's like I've got to. It's all about energy, isn't it? It's all about And I also just wanted to share that when I was about 16, I used to walk around with a big tome of Gurdjieff and P.D. Uspensky. And I don't think I ever read them fully, but I knew there was something in there that was going to be useful to somebody if I could just sit down and read them. But I used to carry them around. And what else have I got to share? And the porosity. The porosity. I worked as a therapist at one point. I just couldn't handle it because of the porosity, you know, because it's like this thing that's said about the fours, that you've got to feel it, that you identify, you think you are the feeling. But I noticed also I have this, in order to feel like I know something, I take it right in and feel it to know it. Do you know what I mean? And and that has taken me to the cleaners quite a lot. A lot of things have taken me to the cleaners quite a lot in my life. But I am just so thrilled to hear this stuff. I can't tell you. I mean, I have, you know, the years I've spent thinking if I was just working my program in a slightly different way, do you know what I mean? Or going to meetings and the shame, because the reflection sometimes is, well, if she was just working her program, you know, and it's like the bafflement and the, what else have I got here? I think that was, and the journaling. Yeah, I have to journal as well. Exercise and journaling are lifesavers.
So, well, thank
just to
you.
maintain. It's like keeping a car running.
Yeah.
Just to be able to drive, I have to do.
Well, one of the things that my chief mentor said is I was bemoaning the fact that I was having a hard time writing a book, and he said, to really access your creativity, you need to set aside a time, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, that you show up for every day if possible. And whether you write a word or not, you show up and you're in the space of receptivity. Some days you may write a lot, some days there may be nothing you write, maybe you reread something you're doing, but you make it a pact with your soul that you show up regardless of your mood. He says, if you follow your mood, he said, inspiration is cheap fuel. It'll only get you out of the driveway a couple times a month. So if you're waiting for inspiration, you're a goner already. He said, but to show up for a project you've decided on and to bear with it for whatever you can afford, 30 minutes a day, an hour a day. And he said, what happens is your effort to be present for your creativity is something that actually strengthens what we call essence or real self. So whether you're succeeding and writing on that particular day, or whether you're just showing up, logging your time, that there's something on a substantial level that begins to be built in where you feel contact with yourself. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that has helped me, is that whole idea of showing up and being with, regardless of my mood, 30 minutes a day, and then discovering, he said, if you do that on a regular basis, your muse will be waiting for you after it understands that you really have a commitment. It'll be there and you'll start right in. So, you know, it's a practice that you can work with, and certainly one that really brought a lot of equanimity to me, balancing out mood shifts, was just showing up and being with my writing for 30 minutes to an hour every day. So there's a book out that I think is really good, written by a type 4, Julia Cameron. She first wrote The Artist's Way, but the next one she wrote, and she's written about 10 of them, is Walking in the World. And it's like 12 lessons on being with your creativity, and looks a lot at, you know, how she would say, you know, people think they have to have the exact right environment to write or to paint. So if you're waiting for the exact, you know, environment to create in, it's not going to happen. You need to learn how to be able to do it wherever you're at. So there's a lot of different hints in there for people who are type 4s on how to stick with their creative process. So.
All right, and thank you, Binti and Michael. So we're sitting right at the top, right at noon Pacific time. So we're going to go ahead and close the meeting. But can you hang around another 20 minutes or so? Okay, Michael. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's say the Serenity Prayer. Laura, you can stop recording now. We'll do the Serenity Prayer, and then Ty, Chris.
Thanks for recovering with us.